¿verdad? Forearmed, no, it's forewarned is forearmed, right? All right. Now, Eli les dijo algo a ustedes ahora, muy importante, que se trata del el estado mental. Yo, y eso me di cuenta yo muchos años después, no importa qué tan experimentados o cuánto tiempo hayan trabajado ustedes en los tribunales o cuánta experiencia ustedes tengan, ustedes se van a poner nerviosos, ¿ok? Es como cuando uno toma el examen de manejo por primera vez, está uno nervioso. ¿Qué vence la ansiedad y el miedo? ¿Alguno de ustedes me podría escribir qué es, cuál es nuestro mejor aliado para vencer la ansiedad y el miedo cuando se trata de un examen? O sea, cuando ustedes van a un examen, ustedes pueden decirme, no, pues sí, voy a hacer esto. Everybody freezes, everybody gets nervous, everybody forgets words, because when you're not clear up here, o sea, cuando ustedes están nerviosos, esto no trabaja bien. ¿Ok? ¿Ok? Alguien va a escribir. ¿Qué es lo que nos puede ayudar? Ok, muy bien. Now, exposure, ok, control your breathing. Van a escribir muchas cosas y eso es importante. Quiero ver todo lo que dicen, porque en realidad todas esas cosas sirven porque todos somos distintos. Tenemos que conocernos a nosotros mismos. ¿Qué es lo que nos ayuda a nosotros? Yo no les puedo decir, tienen que respirar, porque quizás eso ayuda un poco, pero no es la principal ayuda para cada uno de nosotros. Voy a leer algunas de las cosas que escribieron. A ver. Exposure and practice, ¿ok? Conocimiento y confianza en sí mismo. Controlar la respiración. Perfecto. Todas esas cosas están bien. Pero hay una de estas, ¿ok? Que es lo principal, que es la automatizarse. Automatizarse, no la práctica. La práctica nos lleva a eso. Hay que automatizarse, ¿ok? Cuando ustedes van a tomar el examen de manejo, ustedes, si ya han practicado bastante, por ejemplo, no tienen que pensar, por ejemplo, cuando van a cambiar de carril, ustedes sin pensarlo ponen la direccional, right? Y luego giran la cabeza y miran, ¿no? Esos son los dos pasos, ¿no? Cuando uno va a cambiar de carril. Poner la direccional primero y luego mirar para, the blind spot, el punto ciego, para no, porque miramos es porque por el espejo podemos ver que no viene nadie atrás, pero quizás viene alguien acá al lado y por eso tenemos que, de manera automática, ¿ok? Y si ustedes se han dado cuenta, voltear la cabeza, no lo pensamos, porque recuerden, no nos va a funcionar bien el cerebro ese día. Tenemos que automatizarnos, ¿ok? Automatizarnos. Y la automatización viene con la repetición, o sea, con la práctica. Ese es nuestro principal aliado, ¿ok? Entonces, obvio, si no han practicado lo suficiente, ahora no van a estar automatizados. Entonces, ay, Edgar, pues no nos has dicho nada que no sepamos. En otras palabras, nos has dicho practica. Pues eso todo el mundo lo sabe. Tiene que uno practicar, practicar y practicar. No, ya. Pero tienen que automatizar ciertas cosas. Por ejemplo, cierto vocabulario lo tienen que automatizar. Hay ciertas cosas que hay que automatizar. Por ejemplo, hay que automatizar que si es un trozo muy largo y ya se nos acabaron las repeticiones, que nosotros tenemos que saber que lo que vamos a decir, ¿ok? Son ciertas palabras claves. Y aunque no nos acordemos de todo, un ejemplo, ustedes van a hacer un consecutivo y dijeron un trozo larguísimo y ya se les acabó las repeticiones, dicen, no, yo no voy a poder decir todo eso. Ok, no te preocupes, no tienes que decirlo todo. Tienes que decir las partes más importantes. Un ejemplo, ese día yo me fui al parque localizado en el 1340 Whispering Wind Lane, en la ciudad de Springfield, cuando yo vi a tres tipos bajarse de un auto. No me acuerdo de nada de lo que, pero ¿saben qué me acordé? 1340 Whispering Wind Lane. Eso es todo lo que tenía que, y eso era todo lo que tenía que acordarme. Era todo. Era todo ese trozo lo que tenía que acordarme, porque eso es lo que están calificando en ese trozo, nomás ese domicilio. Mi enfoque, ok, mi enfoque tiene que ser en ciertas partes, ciertas palabras. Entonces, ¿por qué? Porque ya me he automatizado hacer eso, ¿no? Ok, muy bien. Entonces, vamos a ver qué dice aquí. Entonces, mental state on test day is critical, ¿ok? Hay ciertas técnicas que yo les voy a enseñar, ¿no? Eh, External stress can affect performance, test readiness, skill, and mindset. Ok, ahora sí les voy a contar ciertas experiencias de ciertas personas. Hay un muchacho que presentó el examen y él ya trabajaba como intérprete y no pasaba. Entonces, esto hizo él. Les voy a dar un ejemplo miren cómo es de importante el estado mental. El día que pasó, esta fue la técnica que usó. ¿Ok? Él dice, ¿sabes qué, Edgar? Ese día lo que hice yo es, me dije yo esto, y dije, yo trabajo todos los días como intérprete legal y lo hago, y yo siento que lo hago de manera maravillosa. Yo no voy a dejar que este examen no, me venza. Entonces, yo opté por encarar este examen como si fuera una cita. Entonces, para empezar, esto es él, ¿no? I think it's a bit extreme, but this is what he did. Se vistió de traje ese día, como lo suele hacer para una cita. Se puso su traje y él dice que cuando él trabaja, una de las costumbres de él es estar de pie. Él no interpreta sentado, le gusta interpretar parado. Entonces dice que él usó esa misma técnica cuando presentó el examen. Se fue y estaba de pie y hizo de cuenta como que estuviera en una cita. O sea, él programó su estado mental como que yo no me voy a preocupar, voy a hacer de cuenta que me voy a una cita. Y así lo hizo y pasó. ¿Por qué? Porque cuando él está en una cita legal, él se siente muy confiado porque lo hace normalmente. O sea, no, it's a state of mind. That's what it took him to be in that state of mind. Okay. So, what does it take you to be in that state of mind? I don't know. But I'm going to suggest a few things. So, the other thing is, it doesn't matter what state of mind you're in. If your body's if you have a bad diarrhea that day, that's going to affect you. Okay. Okay, that's going to affect you. If a family member, if you've had a big loss, that's going to affect you. Okay, and the problem is life, unfortunately, is filled every day. We have stressors. It's not like we don't need somebody to die every day so for us to have stressors. We have stressors every day. We have them. Some days they're lighter than others. And we don't know what's going to happen the week of the exam. We could study all you want, but if something really bad happens that week, So one thing is that week or whenever it is that you're going to take the exam, try to reduce your stressors. Okay. So if you're gonna have a fight with your significant other, leave it for next week. Things like that. If there are things that you can avoid, uh, try to do them because you don't want those stressors. All right. So why do people fail? Why do we fail? Okay. Lack of confidence. Okay. And that's one of the things, the lack of confidence. And I'm going to tell you something. I've had an interpreter tell me, I've been an interpreter for 10 years, and every time I go to the stand, I still get nervous, right? You still get nervous. And I have my technique. I have my technique when I go to the stand. I actually love going to the stand because that's where you learn the most. But you have to, I have like some pep words that I tell myself, you're the man, things of that sort. And that's what I do. I have my little techniques, but lack of confidence, right? Life stressors, I already told you of what can happen, right? Especially the day of the exam. There's like problems the day of the test. Technical issues. This happens a lot. I can tell you a lot of horror stories of people that have issues the day of the exam. When you take the test, I'll give you one example. I had one student, brilliant student, by the way, and The day of the exam on the simultaneous, because it only takes you for you to fail one of the tests to fail the entire exam, right? Except if you're in one of those states that where you fail one part and then you can take that part that you failed later, but still you don't get certified in that shot, right? So what she did was the headset had a volume, and they said adjust your volume, and she adjusted it to, I guess, max, but she lowered the whole volume, and so she was waiting for the simultaneous to start. Never started. She goes, I can't hear it. She goes, oh, it started a while ago, and then when she raised the volume, it had already started. Well, guess what? There's no rewind on the simultaneous, so she failed. And it was a small mistake, but it cost her the exam. And I've heard of other people that that there's it stops, okay, or there's a technical issue, and then it always goes against you, okay. So if that happens, that's just bad luck, okay. Now there are some ways to fix, and usually what they'll do is they'll repeat the exam, okay. They'll say, oh, we'll give you credit, you can take it again, yeah, but you got to wait another year, 6 months, that's it, it's just the way it is. But there's certain things that you can do, right? So before you start an exam, you make sure everything's good with the sound, okay. Now I will teach you some techniques for the consecutive, but how you can work with the proctor, okay. You can work with the que es el administrador de examen, el que administra el examen, el que lleva a cabo el examen, the proctor. How to work with the proctor. There's some techniques on that. So if I forget, Eli, remind me. All this and your lack of confidence is basically because of lack of practice and lack of terminology, and that is something you have to fix. I mean, that's just how it is. Now, what is it that makes us nervous when we go to an exam? Okay, you're faced with unfamiliar subjects. Okay, entonces that's what I try. This is where I focus my energy on. I try to create exams that are very similar to the tests. Okay, so because that is what because when you do that, you go, oh, I covered something like this, very similar to this. I actually know all of this. Okay. And that gives you so much confidence. See, that's where the trick is. I already saw something like this. It's the same. It's the same that we did. It's the same thing that we did in class. Some terms may be different, but it's the same thing. Okay. The other thing is, I know what they're looking for. Okay. So I'm not afraid. I know exactly what it's expected of me. Right. So you know how it's tested. Okay, you don't feel that you are up for the task. I'm gonna tell you a story. Okay, this is another student. Now, I'm gonna be honest with you. I never thought that he would pass the exam. The reason I didn't think he would pass the exam was because of his language skills. His Spanish was so if his English was a 10, his Spanish was a 6, and you want to be at least at an 8 in each one of the languages. Somewhere around there, right? They should be very close to each other. We're always going to have one that's stronger than the other. You can't, for most people, that's the case. But you don't want to have a 5 and a 10, right? Because you're only as good as your weakest link. And I really didn't feel that they were up for the task. But guess what? They stuck to the system that you're seeing right now that I'm teaching, and he passed. Passed the exam. As a matter of fact, I got backlash because of that. Because they asked the guy, "Where'd you study? Because you can hardly speak Spanish." You go, "Oh, I studied with Edgar." And then they're calling me like, how did you pass this guy? How did you try?" I said, "Listen, I just train him how to take tests." Now, my test taking techniques go beyond your language skills. In other words, remember what I told you about scoring units? You may not even speak the language very well, and you can still pass the exam if you get the scoring units. This is how powerful this is. This is how powerful this is. So even your language, if you're, which is the minimum requirement are your language skills. But even if your language skills are not all up there, you can still pass the exam, just sticking to the rules. Okay. Okay. And we've already talked about nervousness. Okay. So let's talk about scoring units. Okay. So only when you take the exam, only certain words are graded. Not everything's graded. For example, when it comes to grammar, okay, remember I told you about the language skills? So let's say your English is not too good. Okay. Well, each part of the exam only there's only two sentences. Let's just take for example the site translation. There's only a couple of scoring units that test specifically grammar. Okay. In other words, they want to know if you know how to use your grammar, but they only test you on 2 or 3 phrases. And then if you mess up on all the other phrases, it doesn't matter because they're not graded for grammar. They're graded for other things. So if you manage to get 2 or 3 phrases correct, and they happen to be the scoring units, then you can speak very sloppy English and Spanish and still pass the exam because only certain things are graded. Okay. Okay. Now the other thing is missing a scoring unit, you get no points. Okay. Even if you get everything correct, if you miss the scoring units, you did nothing. Now, let me see. I had to tell you something. Fluency doesn't matter if key terms are a minute. Oh, okay. Okay. Now, you might think, well, that means I can get sloppy in my English or Spanish and still pass the entire exam. Yes, maybe, probably. If you get the scoring units, definitely. But here's something a piece of advice from me. Okay, remember that the person that's scoring you is a person. It's still not AI. Maybe in the future it's going to be an AI. That could be a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know. But the person that grades you is a person. So I want you to impress this person. Okay, if it's a good rater, okay, sometimes they're not, but if it's a good rater, you want to impress this person. So you want to try your best, just like if you were there with that person. So even though you say, you know what, I know that they only care about the scoring units on this phrase, that I'm going to get sloppy. No. You don't get sloppy. You're going to give them your 100%. You're going to give them your best. But in certain cases, when it's an emergency, you know that you're hitting for the scoring units. But remember, this person, they can't deduct points, and I think that's a lie. And because people say, oh, they take away points. No, they don't. They only take away points if you don't get the scoring units. If they don't like how you interpret, they can't deduct points. But what they can't do is this. I would be more vigilant to take off scoring units if I don't like your interpretation. In other words, if I hear you and I say, you know what, I don't feel this person should pass. Okay, they'll look for things. Okay, so the people are people. So just remember that little detail. Okay, you want to impress, even though we're hitting for scoring units, we still want to impress the rater. All right. Okay, so let's talk about the types of scoring units. All right, grammar. For this, let me do something. Okay, let me see if I can. Oh no, I can't go there. Okay, so grammar. Okay, what I told you, they're going to measure grammar, but they're going to measure grammar in a specific sentence. For example, I'll give you a sentence. The police were called to the scene. If you see that in English, the police were called to the scene. That's one of the typical phrases in where they test grammar. Why? Because it's active passive. That would be the phrase. You see that phrase and you interpret it, but you don't even realize that that's an important phrase. Because for example, this is what they don't want you to do on that phrase. Se llamó a la policía, no, la policía fue llamada al lugar de los hechos, ¿no? The scene. Pueden decir escena, pero, es el lugar donde ocurrió las cosas, ¿no? El lugar de los hechos. La policía, muchos podrían decir, por cierto, no es incorrecto en español decir la policía fue llamada al lugar. No es incorrecto. El pasivo es aceptado en español. Pero las reglas de traducción dicen que en lo posible debemos pasar el pasivo a activo, por ejemplo. Entonces, en esa frase, lo ideal sería, se llamó a la policía al lugar. Se llamó a la policía al lugar. Eso es el activo. En vez de la policía fue llamada al lugar, se llamó la policía al lugar, que es el activo. Esa es una frase de cajón, típica que califican en el examen de estado, el del activo al pasivo. Entonces, esa sería una frase, por ejemplo, ese sería el scoring unit de grammar. False cognates. Por ejemplo, the document was redacted. La mayoría de las personas dirían el documento fue redactado. No. Okay. Redactar en español es escribir. En inglés, redact es básicamente borrar o tachar, ¿no? Highlight, to darken. O sea, they're opposites. They're antonyms. Okay. Eh, the document was redacted, no es el documento fue redactado, fue tachado, fue borrado, lo que sea, o sea, se borró, lo que quiera, ¿no? Entonces, ese sería un ejemplo de un false cognate, legal terms. Ahora, eso es lo interesante. A mí hay algo que me gusta mucho de términos legales, ¿no? Um, Les voy a enseñar un truco. Ok. Les voy a enseñar voy a saltarme un poquito. Ahorita me regreso a esto. Ok. Aquí. ¿Todos están viendo esta tabla? A ver, ¿cómo estamos, Nairobi? Ok. All right. Miren esta tabla. Ok. Miren la parte que dice términos legales. Que estamos hablando de gramática, de language interference, donde dice B, esa es la palabra lo que les acabo de decir, esta to redact, right? Ok. Miren, aquí dice general vocabulary. Miren que dice general vocabulary, pero general vocabulary is really not general, ¿no? It's very specific vocabulary. Y eso lo hablaremos también hoy. Pero legal phrases, ok. Si ustedes notan, ¿en qué componente, les voy a enseñar hoy un truco, ¿en qué componente ustedes ven que es donde más los califican los términos legales? ¿Cuáles de los cuatro? Mucha gente piensa que es en side translation. En todos preguntan términos legales, ¿no? En todos. Pero ¿quién es el que más pregunta términos legales? O sea, ¿qué componente? ¿Es el qué? ¿Él? Ustedes pueden verlo, pueden escribir. ¿Quién es, de dónde es donde más esperan que ustedes sepan términos legales? Porque mucha gente me dice, ay, profesor, yo sí puedo, yo sí, sí, yo siento que estoy bien para el examen, pero ay, es que son tantos términos legales que es difícil. Yo le digo, no, son poquiticos. Dice, no, son muchísimos. Digo, son poquitos. Ahora les explico por qué. En el simultáneo, pero correcto. En el simultáneo. El simultáneo es el que más nos califica, pero el simultáneo es el más fácil. El más fácil. ¿Ok? Si usted, el simultáneo son, póngale unas 20 palabras. Ustedes, if you master 20 words, that's it. That's it. I mean, they're going to ask you 16 words, but it's about 20 to 25 words that you have to know. Which words? Well, I can tell you some of them right now. Beyond a reasonable doubt, cross examination, opening argument, verdict, element of exhibit, beyond, I already told you beyond a reasonable doubt, uh, evidence. Bueno, I just can't say them all off the top of my head, pero son una lista bien pequeñita de unas 25 palabras. Más, o sea, pueden estudiar unas 30, 40, you know, I would say study 50, pero las que preguntan por lo general son unas 20, 25 palabras. De esas 25 que son las más comunes, de esas preguntan los 16. Eso entonces, si ustedes estudian eso, que por cierto, en los exámenes que les voy a hacer yo en las siguientes semanas, yo las voy a incorporar esas palabras. Es más, no tienen que estudiar ningún otro material, incluso mío pasado. Estudienlo, pero ya en el que me puse la meta en los siguientes 4 exámenes de cubrir toda la terminología legal que se necesita. O sea que si ustedes nomás estudian los materiales que voy a enseñar de aquí en adelante, al menos la parte de términos legales, you're going to get it covered just studying the materials. You don't even have to go and study glossaries or anything like that. I've made it a goal of mine of already including all the terms. Okay. All those 16 terms that you're going to be tested on. Okay. So, and if you notice, guess what? After legal terminology, okay, after legal terminology, what's the second thing that they grade the most in simultaneous? Grammar. So if you learn 25 words plus you mind your grammar, what do I mean by minding your grammar? Make sure that you speak. See, in simultaneous, the reason they grade you on grammar, not because grammar is difficult, because if you have a fairly good grasp of the 2 languages, grammar shouldn't be a problem. The reason they grade you on grammar so much on simultaneous more than the sites is because they know that you're speaking 1,000 words per minute, right? You're not. You're speaking slower than that, but they know that you're speaking very fast, and you're not listening to yourself when you're doing the rendition. So, you're saying, y fue a la playa y se encontró con otros amigos y fueron and you're mumbling and and the sentences, you're not putting them together, well, ellos saben esto. Entonces, por eso ellos miran que tú estés armando bien tus oraciones, que estés calmado, relajado, escuchando un simultáneo, ¿no? Y vas siguiendo. Quiero que ustedes escuchen su simultáneo y escuchen a alguien que está haciendo el simultáneo, un intérprete que tenga mucha experiencia, pausado, calmado, armando bien las oraciones, ¿no? Eso es lo importante, ¿ok? Ok, muy bien. Entonces, miren, ya saben, esa es una técnica, lo que les acabo de enseñar, digamos, con eh, eh, términos legales. Luego siguen expresiones idiomáticas, ¿no? Registro, que es la formalidad del idioma. Tenemos que seguir la formalidad del idioma a lo largo de todo el texto. O sea, if we mind our grammar and we mind our register, we don't have to worry about those 2 scoring units. They're coming for free. But just always mind your register, the formality of the language. If they're speaking formal, we speak formal. Okay. And of course, their names and numbers, they're going to throw names and numbers all over the place. Notice that in the site translations, they don't give you a lot of names and numbers. Why? Because we're looking at them. They're mainly important, for example, in the consecutive, right? Because they're testing retention. Do we remember a long address? Do we remember a long telephone number? Do we remember all these things, right? That's why they're testing names and numbers more in consecutive. Now, I'm not gonna talk about markers, embeddings, and all these things because these are important, but these are not really. These are more that things that deal with memory. We'll deal with these when we get to consecutive. Notice that that's the only place where they really drill you with these, with the markers and embeddings. Simultaneous, they do it too, but it's much easier to deal with these in simultaneous. In consecutive, it's really hard to deal with these embeddings. For example, mire, yo no le voy a decir que soy un alma de Dios, pero yo no me meto en ese tipo de líos. Ok. Entonces, esa palabra, mire, that was the embedding. Muchas personas, ok, dirían, look, la traducción sería, look, I'm not an angel, okay, but I don't get into those types of problems, right? Entonces, muchas personas dicen, I'm not an angel, but I don't get into those types of problems. Entonces, se le olvidó look. Es una palabra que en realidad, si ustedes la omiten, no afecta la oración de ninguna manera. Okay. Es más, if you were a conference interpreter, if you omit that, that's not a big deal. Okay. You probably will because you have to remember a very long utterance. But we are not conference interpreters. We're court interpreters. Those little words, believe it or not, are very important because they can indicate a person's education. They can indicate if a person is lying. Okay. They those little details say a lot about a person, especially because these are people that are testifying on the witness stand in consecutive. So those words are important, and they're not difficult to translate. The problem is, or interpret in our case, the problem is that we miss them because of where they're placed. That's why they're called. They deal with position, right? So and they intensify. Okay. No way. I'm not going to the park. No voy a ir al parque. No dijo no voy a ir al parque. De ninguna manera que voy a ir al parque. ¿No? De ninguna manera. Entonces, that's emphasis, right? So that's again, it's very easy for these to get lost in translation, and they know this. And these I can't tell you. It's hard for me to. I mean, I can add them, and I do add them in the consecutives, but it's they're all over the place, all over, and but you have to learn to recognize them and know that they're important. Once you know that they're important, then you're not going to leave them out, right? That's the first thing, acknowledging. Okay, let's go back.